Who are the best backcourts in college basketball? Coming up next on Locked On NBA Big Board.
You are Locked On NBA Big Board, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up? My name is Richard Stayman. This is Leif Thulin with me. We are filling in for the great Rafael Barlow as he is out on paternity leave pretty much. So congratulations to him. Also, happy birthday to Rafael. Today is his birthday, the 26th of June. But my name is Richard Stayman. I am media credentialed in college basketball throughout. TCU is my home spot and generally go some other places as well. And I'm joined by Leif Thulin, who is one of the best college basketball follows on Twitter. He knows the game inside and out. He came up with today's topic, so wanted to talk with him about that, the best college basketball backcourts in the game. But before we do, I want to say thank you to everybody who continues to listen to us through the dog days of the offseason. I know this isn't exactly the most exciting time of the offseason. There's literally nothing happening. Peach Jam just ended, so that was like exciting. And the offseason's kind of, Colin Sexton's still available. It's pretty much where we are. So other than that, basketball's kind of dead in the basketball tournament. So thank you for making us your first listen of the day and continuing to listen to us. It does mean a lot. Leif, as I was saying, you're big in college basketball. Let's get the ball rolling. Who do you have? We're going to rank the top backcourts in college basketball, the top 5. Who do you have? Doesn't have to be your number 1, but who do you want to kick it off with first? We can talk about.
Let's start with the number 1 because I've already talked about them ad nauseum. I'll just say this. This is the way I analyze college basketball. What team has the best guards and they win? And they've got to have supporting cast, and sometimes it helps to have a star. But I usually just pick the team with the best guards in college basketball, and typically it's been successful. I will say that Kansas won, and this may get some Kansas people frustrated me. I think Kansas had the worst guards to win a national championship of any team in the past 25 years, other than actually, no, I think that's the statement that they had the worst guards to win a national championship in the past 15, 20 years. Anyway, long story short, I'll go to this positive of this is the team that won previously was Baylor, and they had the best guards in college basketball by a large margin, even against a team that was undefeated entering the tournament, and that was Gonzaga. And my number 1 team in terms of the backcourt in America and my favorite to win the national championship is those same Baylor Bears. Keontae George, we've talked about together. I've talked about him separately. Stud. He can score the ball at an elite level, scored 32 points against Italy, 37 against U23 of Canada in the global games for Baylor without his backcourt mates of Adam Flagler, LJ Cryer, who people forget about. He was out for the number 1 seed Baylor. He was their lead scorer last year, and part of the year he was coming off the bench, and then he took a kind of played second fiddle, and there was this awkward ball dominance relationship between he and James Akinjo. Well, he's back, and he's awesome. And Langston Love, who I know you're really high on, is back as well after tearing an ACL. And I think anytime you can have Langston Love as your 4th best guard, and I think he's definitively their 4th best guard, that's the best backcourt in America. And the front court's filling out all right. And if Jonathan Tchamwa comes back, that is my early favorite to win a national championship. And not a bad futures price if you're interested in that market.
Yeah, I don't think Baylor is my exact number 1 backcourt, but I agree that I think they're the title favorites because they're so stacked at backcourt. Like in terms of just star power, they're not my number 1. I do love just how many ball handlers they have and how different, versatile skill sets everybody has on both ends of the floor. I think it's going to be a really good team, and I agree. I think they should be the absolute national title favorites. The one I would start off with, and Baylor is in mine, so actually we can talk more about that too. I think you covered it pretty well. Keontae George Flagler was pretty much my very low quality, I guess, introduction to it for me. I was just like, all right, I really like these 2 guys at a high level. You throw in Langston Love in there. I'm sure someone else will emerge as a guy who just thrives because that's what Baylor does. And I think they're definitely in my top 5. So tackle's one of them. My top 5 is Miami. I really like what they do. Obviously, if you've been following me on Twitter at Mavstraft throughout the season at any point, once a week at minimum, I'm tweeting about Miami just because I like Isaiah Wong so much. And another guy who I really like is Nigel Pack, who is from Kansas State transferring in. I actually got to meet both of them over in Miami in May, got to see both of them work out. It's a really cool experience. And they're going to be really good together. Isaiah Wong is working on his shot. Nigel Pack probably is the best shooter in the country. And not only that, Nigel Pack has a really good finishing game around the rim for his size and is a good facilitator. I think they're going to feed off of each other a lot. It's a big upgrade from Charlie Moore, no disrespect intended, but Nigel Pack's just a lot better, and he's a lot younger too. I think that's got a really good argument to be the number one backcourt in the country. And also, from a draft perspective, I think both of them could easily get drafted. It's harder for Wong because he'll be a senior, but ultimately, you look at the talent, they are both draftable to me. So I don't know what your thoughts are on Miami, but if you don't have anything else on them, feel free to list your number 2.
Yeah, I have Miami at the tail end of my top 5. I think they're kind of edging out a few teams for 5, 6, and 7 are really close. I have them in top 5 just because of the proven production of Wong and Pack. I really thought he was going to go to Purdue and thrive in like a Carson Edwards-like role where he gets to shoot the lights out. He'll still do that at Miami, but I'm curious to see whether he plays with the ball more or if Isaiah Wong is going to play with the ball more, because he's got the separation ability that I know you've highlighted on your Twitter page many a time, and he's got great athleticism. Anyway, interesting team to watch, but I'll stay in the ACC for my number 2 team that I think will probably, if you were to look at sports books, I'd imagine they're the favorite to win the national championship right now. And a large portion why is this backcourt of RJ Davis and Caleb Love, both juniors at North Carolina. They're the presumptive favorites in the ACC at the very least. And they have Armando Bacot up front, who is their best player. And so that always helps when you've got another player that's in your top 2, 3 in the country backcourt. To break down the games, we've talked about Caleb Love a couple times on this podcast and the old one, Locked on NBA Draft. Caleb Love is a scoring guard who figured out how to play off the ball and took away his playmaking duties and put the ball in the hands of RJ Davis, put Love off the ball, and voila, they turn around and go to the championship and make a claim for winning the championship, and probably should have. RJ Davis is a very good shooter. He's a good decisive point guard. And they'll just need to balance who gets the ball and when, because they got a lot of mouths to feed. They got Pete Nance in the transfer portal, obviously Armando Bacot, and then Caleb Love. I think lots of people say, wow, he won them the game against Duke. He was awesome against UCLA in the Sweet 16, but he shot them out of the game in Kansas. And I don't think that's necessarily fair, but what is fair is the fact that he took some ill-advised shots, and he's got that kind of ultimate green light. And sometimes you want to give your guards that. So that's a slight concern for me, but those two players together are very difficult to outmatch in terms of what they've accomplished already, their age as players, and just like their cohesiveness. And I think both have second round potential. I don't think either are great draft prospects, but they're phenomenal college guards.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they made the NCAA, or they made the NCAA tournament final. It's like with that backcourt, they're probably going to be in the minimum Sweet 16 again, depending on their draw. RJ Davis is really impressive. I wish both of them had a little bit more size. I think that would have probably propelled them to be up there for me, because personally, I don't see either of them getting drafted. Caleb Love has historically bad inefficiencies from the 2-point range. RJ Davis needs to be more efficient. I think his is a lot more realistic of a path to improvement. Has a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. That's a lot more promising than Caleb Love. So actually, I'm going to fact check up myself on that mid sentence, because I feel like that's not right. No, it is. Caleb Love needs to also reduce turnovers. He averaged the same amount of assists, almost a full turnover more. So that's definitely something to monitor. I'll stick with my hometown bias, I guess, here. And I'm going to throw another one in the mix. This isn't necessarily my number 2, but just figure I'll tackle these both out of the way early, and that is TCU. I really love their backcourt. It's the reason they're a top 10 consensus team preseason. And it starts with Mike Miles. I mean, he's going to be, I think he's going to have an All-American year. You look at what he did last year. I posted an interesting stat, which is, it's not anything too deep or anything like that, but Mike Miles for the year, he had averaged 15 points a game, 4 assists, 38% shooting, and that was on 30% from 3. If you took out all of his floaters from the season, because even going back to EYBL and stuff, he loves that little runner and floater. He loves going left, running right, kind of just, it's unblockable. It's an unblockable shot. If it goes in, you can't do it. Like, that is an unguardable play, which he has the skill for, but he's just not making it. And it's really hindering his his field goal percentage. If you took all of that out, his field goal percentage skyrocketed like 43, 44%, which is very respectable for a 6'1" guard. So I think that's something, one of two things happens. He stops taking them nearly as much, or he gets better at them and starts making them more. So I think it's a tough shot to really be a consistent shot maker at. Granted, he's only 19 years old, still is 19 for a couple more weeks. They'll be 20 years old as a junior, the youngest junior in the class. And that's on draft night. But for the college game, I mean, you just look at a guard who can break the defenses down, can get to the rim, can shoot. I think he can defend enough. You want him on the smallest player. You can't really flex him out of point guards. But then you pair him with Damian Baugh, who I really like. He's an absolute dog on defense. I think he's one of the more fun. I think he's just one of the more fun players. He can ISO. He can get to the rim. Needs to be more consistent from three, but I think he's a pro. I think he could play easily in the G League next season. So I think those are my top two favorites, at least. I don't know if they're actually my top two, but those are my two. But we'll get on to some of the more of the top five. But first, let me tell you about Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Are you ready? It's delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. It feels like every time we tell you about Built Bar, they have a new flavor. I was just trying the Puffs, a different flavor of Puffs, but they have cookie dough chunk Puffs. I think it was having the marshmallow chunk Puffs or something like that. And it is absolutely delicious. I still haven't gone through my box yet because I'm scared to get rid of it at this point, where it's like, if I eat it, there's nothing left. But you get all the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it, and it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. So go to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It'll be the perfect treat, or you can find a really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself, kind of like I do. Like all the Built bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff, is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate-covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. It is so good. What's great about Built is all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. You eat something good, tastes good, it's good for you. It's a win-win-win. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15. So continuing back with our top five college basketball backcourts with Leif Thulin, I'm Richard Stayman. Leif, I just ended with TCU. On the other end, we had, so the four we've listed so far, Leif listed Baylor and North Carolina. I listed TCU and Miami. Who are your next two you want to talk about? I'll you do one at a time.
I love the TCU one that you did. I saw them play in person, and Damian Baugh and Mike Miles really stood out to me, and I have them right on the fringe of my top five. The next one I'm going to talk about is near TCU. It's Houston. Houston made the Final Four 2 years ago, and they were led by a different set of guards. They had healthy Mark Sasser. They had Quentin Grimes, and who's obviously a very prevalent NBA talk right now. And this past year, they were missing Mark Sasser and Tremont Mark, and then Jamal Shed just took this huge leap that I don't think anyone truly anticipated, and made himself a household name in college basketball fans' houses. And now you've got you've got Mark Sasser and Jamal Shed playing together. They're an undersized backcourt. So NBA draft scouting is a little different on this, but Mark Sasser can score. He played at the Combine and still could score, especially at the G League Combine. And he'll come back, and I think he's going to average over 20 points a game on a Houston team that should be a lock to be a top 10 team all season long. Kelvin Sampson preaches defense and intensity, but when you got a guy who can score like Mark Sasser, and then you've got that dog who's the kind of the floor general in Jamal Shed, it's hard to overlook what they can do in terms of productivity, but also just the way they both will impact winning. It's hard to overlook what Houston's got going on over there. And these two will be the engines and the catalysts for, I think, the most complete Houston team. It's obviously hard to be better than a Final Four and Elite Eight back-to-back. And we'll see. Maybe they can take a step forward. But I think on paper, this is the best Houston team they've had. And I think Mark Sasser is going to be an All-American.
Yeah, Marcus Sasser returning from the draft. I know he wanted a first-round promise for him. So I think that's a really good backcourt. And also, like, I mean, their recruiting class is absolutely stacked. I know they got Jarris Walker, who's a forward, and then Terrence Arsenault, who's also a wing. But I mean, he's going to handle the ball a lot. Like, I mean, they're going to be a really good team. I don't think you said it. I mean, yeah, it's hard to go back to back at what they did, even making the Elite Eight plus twice in a row. But it wouldn't shock me if they did it 3 years in a row. That program's one of the best. I hate calling them a mid-major because they're just not, but they're like the best non-Power 5 school, I think, that's not named Gonzaga. And speaking of Gonzaga, I'm going to give a curveball. I know I had a plan top 5. I actually really like Gonzaga's backcourt, and I think this is a little bit of a hot take here, but I love Nolan Hickman. I think he weighs so much on my mind for this that's why I have them this high. But him and Hunter Salas as a backcourt, I really like. I know it's hard to lose. It's hard to lose Andrew Nembhard. And then also you throw in, I'm absolutely blanking on his name as I was just starting that sentence, Strother, who is a guard. You factor in them. I think it's a really good backcourt. I like Nolan Hickman a lot. I think he's going to take a big jump this year. And I think he's absolutely somebody who should be on second round radars. I think kind of you talk about these mid-majors that, they explode and they do really well. Nolan Hickman's going to benefit a lot from that. And I think he's going to have a big increase with Andrew Nembhard. There's so many Nembhards to go around. There was RJ at TCU, there's Andrew at Gonzaga just now. And then we also have another Nembhard who we'll talk about later. So I really like Nolan Hickman, though. I really think he'll, excuse my hitting the camera over there. I just bumped my computer. But I think Nolan Hickman is just a good shooter, has a really good floater. I love his offense. So curious what you think about Gonzaga, and then I'll let you list another.
Yeah, Gonzaga, it has an interesting addition as well. I think Nolan Hickman and Hunter Salas are really – I'm intrigued to see it. I'm hesitant to put them that high just on those two because I'm a production guy, but they've certainly have the potential. They also brought in someone with elite potential production and should have potential to be an efficient player in the WCC. That is the heart and soul of Chattanooga, who really pushed Kofi Coburn in Illinois to the brink and probably should have won that game in the first round, the 13-4 matchup. Malachi comes over and he scored 20 points a game. It's hard to do that going up a division, but I think he still should be impactful. You've seen Michigan do this 2 years in a row, getting Mike Smith from Columbia and then getting Devontae Jones, and they've been instant impact players on good teams. They don't have to be the lead scorer. That's going to be Drew Timme. Julian Strother is set to be the second. So I think this is a backcourt that I would have safely in the top 10. Top 5 is a little tough, but you mentioned that we will talk about a Nembhard coming up, and I'll just do that right now. And I love Creighton's backcourt. And that is before they got Baylor Shireman. And that's someone who is arguably the best transfer out there from South Dakota State, and he shoots the ball from all the way out in Omaha for Creighton. I mean, they can really shoot the basketball at Creighton typically, but they've got a different archetype of roster. And what I'm most excited for is Ryan Nembhard, who came in as a freshman last year and was one of the best point guards in the Big East. And then Trey Alexander, with Ryan Nembhard out during the tournament. Trey Alexander, who's the cousin of Mike Conley, showed some serious poise and impressive just wherewithal, knowing where to be, figured out how to score in moments where he had to score, found a way to distribute without the true point guard Ryan Nembhard with him. Add in Baylor Shireman's shooting ability, and Arthur Kaluma is a forward, but I just want to bring up that trio of sophomores is my favorite trio of sophomores in the country of Trey Alexander, Ryan Nembhard, and Arthur Kaluma. They've got a really fun team, and if you add in Baylor Shireman as the third guard, which he is, that's one of the best backcourts and one of the most accomplished backcourts, even though they're youthful. And I think Creighton's going to have their best team they've had to date, even better than the Doug McDermott, McBuckets days teams. I really like this Creighton team, and that's a team I typically stay away from betting on or taking far in my brackets, but I think their identity is different this year. And when you've got one of the easily top 5 backcourts in America, I have a hard time staying away from you. And I think Creighton's the favorite in the Big East, and rightfully so, despite some talented programs in the Big East that I think are being overlooked a little bit this year.
Yeah, and I will forever stand firmly on this island, but I think if Ryan Kalkbrenner didn't get hurt in the NCAA tournament, Kansas may not have been your champion. That is my hottest. I don't know how hot of a take that is, but I mean, they were in that game the whole time, and that was without Kalkbrenner, who was probably the second or third best player. I know he's the most efficient So maybe that's skewing a lot of my perception on that. But really would have loved to see them pull that upset off at the A1. Also because I picked out of my bracket, but obviously it's not how it played out. So I really like the Creighton pick as well. I will go to, I'm trying to think of which one to even hint at next, but I guess I'll start with Texas. I'll go with Texas as my next one. I know we had talked about that. I love Marcus Carr this year. I think he made such significant strides when he transferred over from Minnesota, became a really intense defender, just really focused on off-ball defense. I saw him in person at TCU make guys' life just hell, and he would be a menace on ball. He would be making sure that guys can't even touch the ball. It's just really impressive stuff to me. I'm a sucker for that. He's still a good shot maker, can distribute a little bit. He needs to be, if I wish he was a little bit bigger and did all this stuff to be in the NBA, but I think still ultimately he's going to be a guy who you don't want your client to work out against. He's going to make it in the G League, probably get a two-way or something, maybe an Exhibit 10. And I really like him. And then you throw it over to Tyrese Hunter, who was very good at Iowa State this last year, very quick. He's a little bit undersized at, I want to say 6 feet, maybe 6'1" if we're generous. Didn't shoot the three ball well, needs to improve that jump shot to really stick, but good playmaker. Can get to the rim a little bit, just needs to be more efficient again, and can get a lot of steals. He almost reminds me of a baby Sharif Cooper in some ways. So not the best time to talk about a Sharif Cooper after he just got waived. But ultimately, I think he's going to dominate at Texas. Same conference, better program. Kind of the only thing I didn't like was now with both Carr and Hunter coming, which all this happened, I think unexpectedly to guys like Arterio Morris, who expected to be the starting guard just 3 months ago before all of that came out, kind of threw a wrench in his recruiting, but I still think he'll also be in the mix, which kind of going back to Baylor, there's more guys. I think Arterio Morris is going to surprise a lot of people. I know you like Texas. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think Texas has a really good backcourt because they have a veteran in Marcus Carr who at Minnesota had to do so much and had to score at an alarming rate. Had to be the usage rate for Marcus Carr. I don't have it off the top of my head. At Minnesota was alarming, like to the naked eye, and I'm sure statistically it would back it up. Then at Texas, he took a more egalitarian approach under Chris Beard in his first year there, and they're going to have the defensive intensity that made Chris Beard prevalent at Texas Tech. And I love Hunter. Tyrese Hunter transferring to Texas. I thought there was some places that may have been a better fit for him, but what does fit is the defensive intensity, and he can make that team better just by playing defense and creating offense via defense. And Marcus Carr can be the facilitator. I think Tyrese Hunter has got a chance to be a first-round pick or a early second-round pick in the NBA draft this upcoming year, especially if he improves his jump shot. He hit 7 threes in a tournament game, and his jump shot's one of my concerns. So he's just a big-time player. I had Texas number 6 on my list, so they were just on the cusp, and I'm very eager to see how they have all these talented players, Dylan Mitchell as well at the small forward, how they're going to kind of appease all these players and their hunger to score the basketball, because a lot of them are ball dominant. But Texas is a team to watch that I think will surprise some people that have kind of gotten used to Texas being disappointing come March Madness.
Yeah, and then let's talk about some of our let's wrap this up. Let's hit our number 5, and then let's hit some honorable mentions too. I'll let you go with your number 5, your last one you want to talk about before we go into some rapid fire.
Yeah, I think you hit my number 5 and 6 there. I've got one that we haven't talked about yet. My 5 was Miami, so we discussed Miami, and then I had TCU and Texas 6 and 7. And my number 8, I think this is one that we've talked about some of their individual players, but we haven't talked about them as a tandem, is Arkansas. Arkansas has elite young guards, so it's hard for me to put them super, super high, but in talent, they may be the most talented pairing of guards. And obviously, that's Nick Smith, who widely is regarded, and I've used Tankathon to say big board rankings. He's number 3 on Tankathon, and then number 10 is Anthony Black, who's 6'7", 195 pounds. Both of them are young freshmen. They're 18 years old, and they'll be just barely 19 by draft time. I think these two guards will probably both be lottery picks. It just depends how they work as a cohesive unit and how good Arkansas is. And I have faith in Eric Musselman to make them an Elite 8 caliber team. He's done it 2 years in a row with lesser rosters. And so I have faith in him to do so. I can't put them top 5 without seeing them on a college basketball court. But talent-wise, Nick Smith is an explosive guard. He gets to the rim at will. He's got a kind of deep bag, got tricks in his sleeve, and he can get to the rim and posterize you. Anthony Black's an incredible scorer. Not quite the athlete Nick Smith is, but he's got a beautiful jump shot and length to boot, so he can play, be an impactful defender for 2 positions, even despite being not the athlete of the extreme caliber of Nick Smith. But I'm excited to watch this backcourt. I'm just not quite top 5 on them, but they easily could be.
Yeah, and I think that's the best draft backcourt off the top of my head. Just so much upside. I mean, Anthony Black could be a lottery talent if things go right for him. I think Nick Smith is almost a lock to go lottery from this point, but also at the same time, like 11 months in the draft, literally nothing is a lock. So at the same time, not really, but from this point, like Nick Smith seems to be a safe bet. I like that pick a lot. They were also in my potential honorable mentions. My 5th one, I'm cheating here a little bit, just scaling somebody down by doing this, but I'm going to go with Duke. It feels like every single episode I'm talking about Duke, this one player from Duke, Tyrese Proctor, who is coming over from Australia. Just a great shot creator at 6'4", fully buy into his playmaking and just overall point guard skills and all-around offense. And then on top of that, I really do like Tariq Whitehead. Again, this is where I'm kind of cheating here. He's not a true point guard, but I think ultimately you'll see him play some shooting guard minutes. You'll see them be paired together. And to me, that's why they would be my number 5. So curious what you think on Duke, and any honorable mentions you want. Go ahead and start listing them.
Yeah, I think Duke, Tyrese Proctor, I know you're a huge fan, and I think the upside is there. I may think he's going to be a 2-year guy. I think he's got a lot of talent, but there's just a lot of mouths to feed at Duke. Obviously, Tariq Whitehead, when you scale him down to the guard spot, that elevates them with Jeremy Roach as well. Jeremy Roach is set to take a big leap as a junior in responsibility, and he was arguably the second best player during Duke's Final Four run behind Paolo Banchero. Proctor and Jacob Grandison, I was blanking there, Illinois transfer previously from Holy Cross. Awesome player. I think he may play more minutes just because they want a veteran presence. A lot of the best Duke teams have had an older guard on their team. That brings to mind like Matt Jones as a guy who he played with Quinn Cook, and then they had Justice Winslow and Jahlil Okafor. I have a hunch they're going to play him over Tyrese Proctor, but Tyrese Proctor is going to excel in the second year. So I'm going to pump my personal brakes on him, but I do like Tyrese Proctor. And then a few honorable mentions that I have. I've got Kentucky. I'll just read them out and then I'll analyze them after. I've got Kentucky, Memphis, Florida, and UCLA as a couple. I think Kentucky is one where you've got a proven commodity in Severe Wheeler, and whether I love his shot distribution because I felt like he took away from Ty Washington, that's a separate story. But he's a proven commodity. He's a defensive pest. He leads the SEC in assists. They bring in a transfer that scores 20 a game in Reeves, and then they have Cason Wallace coming in, and he's a top 20 freshman. And I haven't seen a ton of Wallace to definitively give my take on whether I feel great about him as a draft prospect or as a college player, but it's hard to argue with that the reputation that precedes him. UCLA brings in a top 20 freshman as well, Amari Bailey, who's top 10, and Tiger Campbell certainly is a known commodity. He's awesome back there. So I like UCLA. Memphis is a sneaky one. They bring in Kendrick Davis, who won the American Player of the Year this past year. And then they have Alex Lomax, who's a 5th year, maybe even 6th year senior now. So I really like that backcourt. You can see the trend. I like one proven commodity, one guy that's kind of a bit of a sleeper. But in this case, they're both proven commodities. I think Kendrick Davis was the best player, and he his award said so. And I think he's going to be excellent again for Memphis. And I think he may repeat as AAC Player of the Year. Obviously, he'd have to beat out Mark Sasser, and I'm not certain he'll do that, but that's a really close one. And then the last one I said there was Florida. They bring in Will Richard, and I think people sleep on Will Richard's game. I know Richard Stayman, another guard over here. He likes his game, so I'll let you break in over here. But I just wanted to give a Will Richard shout out because him and Lofton are a sneaky fun backcourt. And I'll give one more. Reese Beekman. I love Reese Beekman. He's the best defensive guard in the country, in my opinion. and Kihei Clark, who's not far behind. And that's a very experienced backcourt that I think Beekman's set to become an All-American, not All-American, All-ACC performer. And when you're All-ACC, that certainly means that you're doing something right.
Hey, shout out to Simon Rath of Hawks Draft Nerd. He loves Will Richards. So I know if he's listening, he absolutely will love that. So, and also thank you for calling me a guard. I'm not worthy, but thank you. One of the other, I had a couple honorable mentions. You took one right out of my mouth. Kentucky captured it perfectly. I really like Ohio State too. I really think Roddy Gale, top 50 recruit, is somebody who is going to be an NBA player. They also got the 46th ranked recruit. Actually, Roddy Gale was 45. This guy, Bruce Thornton, who I don't know a ton about, was 46, but already strong there. But the big draw for me was they also got Isaac Likely, who still reminds me a ton of a Patrick Beverly, just really needs to be more aggressive as a scorer to make it in the NBA. That's really his big missing key. Also want to correct something I said earlier. I said Gonzaga. I completely forgot one person in there. Malachi Smith, the transfer from Chattanooga. I forgot he had transferred over to Gonzaga. He was the best player on that team, a team that a lot of people thought was going to be a Cinderella in the tournament. It was a good team. They won, I think, 24, 23 games, 25, somewhere in that range. He's going to add a very solid veteran experience. Even though Gonzaga didn't have a great recruiting class, they still had a really good, getting him made up for that. So I really like that. I think you captured it pretty well. I also liked UCLA. That was another one that I've had on my mind. And then just one last shout out, I guess, is I like David Jones at DePaul. And then I also like Zion Cruz, who is a commit to DePaul. He went to the Donda Academy. Donda, I still really don't even know how to say it, as uncultured as I am. But I really do like both of them. I've seen Zion's game, and I've seen David Jones's game. I think they're a really good pairing. They're not anything like super special, but just shout out to them. But this has been our top 5 college basketball backcourts. Thank you so much for listening. And if you're not listening on YouTube already, watching on YouTube, please do the usual. You hear it all the time: like, subscribe, share, all the fun stuff. But if you could actually just subscribe, that's all we ask. It would really mean a lot to us. We're actually like in a competition here on Locked On of which NBA team, or the Locked On NBA channel. We're far behind, so anything we could get helps. Anything helps at this point would really mean a lot. But my name is Richard Stayman at Mavs Draft. You can follow Leif at Leif Thulin, just his first and last name, right here on the YouTube channel. On this video at the bottom right, middle right. Go ahead and give him a follow as well. Great for college basketball content just throughout the season, off season. His brain is always going with college basketball stuff, kind of like mine is. We're both always churning just basketball content. But thank you so much for listening. We will see y'all tomorrow.